Futuristic sleeping pods for homeless. Dave Chappelle tests positive for coronavirus.
Damn!
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you are tuning in. My name is Jonathan Torres-Herrera, and you are watching or listening to the JTH Show. Today, let's talk about how are homeless in Germany living in the future, and what's the big deal with Dave Chappelle contracting COVID. But first, roll the intro. All right. Well, thank you for joining us again for another episode. If you're new here, we try to do these daily episodes where Josh and I talk about what's currently, happening in the world, what's going on with news, and hopefully anything and everything that matters to you. As always, you can catch this episode and any of our other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Radio Public. So, Josh, ready to start?
Yeah, ready to start. We've had enough of the Joe Biden Trump. I guess what do you want to call it? Saga or something like that. So let's move on to something a bit different this time, shall we?
Yeah. Enough with the trilogy saga, whatever that is, right? That it is definitely for sure to be continued. But for now, let's move on to some other types of news. And we're going to start with an article out of the Independent titled "Futuristic Sleeping Pods for Homeless People Installed in German City." Now, here, I think I've mentioned before, right, that this one hits a little bit to home or any German news in the last few years because I personally have a good buddy of mine who is from Germany. So I saw this article. Now, something else, by the way, when I saw this article that kind of also set off like a light bulb in my head is, hold on, can this work in America? Of course, right? Which is where I am right now. I'm in Texas, in the U.S. For anybody watching outside the U.S., specifically where I'm originally from, which is San Diego, California, because as many people know, California has a massive homelessness problem. Right? It's unfortunate, but it is something that's very real. Now, going back to the article. It says windproof and waterproof sleep pods have been installed in the streets of a German city in order to house homeless. The wood and steel cabins, which can fit up to 2 people, protect against cold, wind, and humidity. They also guarantee fresh air circulations. The pods were introduced to the city of Ulm, 75 miles west of Munich, on the 8th of January, in parks and at other places where homeless people sleep, a city spokesperson said. Now, a couple things, of course, right, that immediately come to mind if I were to tell you, hey, what about we do, sleeping pods for homeless? How big are they going to be? What do they look like? And, they what are they going to be made out of? And as you heard right now, it's apparently steel and wood. And of course, what are we talking when we say pod? Well, the article goes on to add that to ensure privacy, there are no cameras in the pods, but the openings of the doors triggers a motion sensor which alerts social workers who check on the pods following its use to ensure that it can be cleaned and also to provide assistance to anyone using the unique form of accommodation. The pods right now, according to this, are equipped with even solar and are connected to a radio network, allowing occupants to communicate without the dependency of a mobile network. What does that mean? Well, of course, again, because these are being installed due to harsh weather conditions, right? Where a lot of people that are homeless have to unfortunately sometimes sleep outside, and it can be very dangerous. In fact, it can be deadly, right? Even in somewhere, again, where I'm from, like San Diego, California, where relatively the weather is always like beautiful. It's always like between low, maybe 75 to upwards of 85, right? In most areas of the city. Even then, when winter really hits San Diego, I have heard news growing up of people that were found on park benches. They had passed away because, again, really bad weather conditions. So I can only imagine in Germany, right? It's probably worse. So what they're saying here is, listen, that's the primary reason. And of course, because there is such bad weather conditions sometimes, we don't want these people to maybe be snowed in as well. So we're going to equip them with some kind of a communication system, right? So they can at least say, hey, I'm in this pod, or I'm stuck in here, or I need medical assistance. So all that sounds great. In addition of the article says that these pods are called Ulmer nests, and they can also host up to 2 people, and are mainly for people that are unfortunately in a position where they cannot be housed in a normal homeless shelter, people with psychological problems, or people with pets. So it is, of course, not a hotel. So I don't know that anybody would use these as a hotel. I can also not imagine that they're going to smell the best, which leads us down the road of like, interesting, smell. Well, what would these things smell like? Well, let's consider some things, right? I don't want to be harsh or sound, like I'm demeaning these individuals, but these individuals usually, right, don't have the best hygiene. At least the homeless people that I came across in my my city of San Diego. Unfortunately, they don't like to take showers regularly, whether because they don't want to, or maybe because they can't. They don't have access to, a way for them to regularly shower. In addition, a lot of them are big time smokers. I mean, big time. And, where they get the money for the smokes is a completely different question. But, they are definitely big smokers. And, well, I don't know that these individuals are gonna, not, start, piping down on some of these, cigarettes inside of these pods. In addition to them being able to actually take a pet in there with them. If they probably don't shower as much, what do you think these animals smell like, right? So those are some of the things that came to my mind immediately. Of course, in addition to other problems, right? Like it can host up to 2 people. A lot of these individuals are sometimes, older, they are actually in that age group of elderly people that already have other conditions, and they unfortunately might pass away in these pods. Of course, illicit stuff like doing drugs or performing sexual activity within these pods also came to mind. So Josh asked me earlier, right, what do you think, right? And I told him, listen, like with many things, of 2 different mindsets. One, like many programs that exist out there in the world, fantastic. I'm glad that they're coming up with something to help those that need help, right? There are soup kitchens. There are already, again, like the article says, actual, homeless shelters that people can, attend, and they sleep in, actual cots or something. And just like those programs, this program here, I don't know that it won't be abused in some fashion, right? With everything I just mentioned. But is it still something that they shouldn't do? I don't know. Again, I ask myself, should these be installed in somewhere like where I'm from, San Diego? And, it's something that I know that I would want to decide on. But, Josh, I mean, what do you think? Being where you live now or where you're from originally, do you think these pods would fare well there?
It's a tough one. I mean, I can absolutely see why and how this could actually work very well. If we could trust the society that we live in and trust people to be honest and trust people to actually use these as they are meant to be used, hell yeah. But of course, we don't live in this utopian society where that's possible. With that in mind, I could completely understand why Germany would take this step, look at everything that's going on with the world, like with COVID. I'm sure these hostels now don't allow at least half, or maybe only let in 30 to 40% of the people that they used to let in. So having an individual pod, so people who actually hang out with each other will be able to stay together and not spread the virus and not stay in public. Sure, that makes complete sense. Is there a chance it's going to be used for illicit activity? Of course there is. In any society, whether it's Mexico, whether it's the US, whether it's Germany, whether it's the UK, whether it's anywhere in the world, there's gonna be a problem. There's always going to be a problem. Not everyone in society. There is no utopian society where there is no homelessness or anything like that. But Germany, being the humanitarian nation that it is, they're giving this a test. I'd like to see how it goes for them, but I don't think you'll be seeing any of those on Airbnb anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree, right? I don't think we're gonna be seeing them, next month rolled out, worldwide or something, or even nationwide for Germany. Of course, the article also added that these are for last resort, right? So they definitely want to encourage people to roll out to these homeless shelters first. But if these Ulmer nests, they are successful, and they don't pose any more risks than normally, right? People dealing with homelessness already are dealing with, then it could actually be rolled out nationwide. When, of course, that is the big question. And I think it's one of those things that we just have to see, right? We have to see how this is adapted into this small city in comparison to rolling it out to like a major, city in Germany, and then seeing, how people there, adopted, and then if maybe they can roll it out to maybe neighboring countries or something, and see how they do it and slowly spread. Now, I will say that here in San Diego, for instance, some of the crazy stuff that I've seen before when they roll out something that is supposed to be for the betterment of the community, the betterment of people, something as simple as cleaner transportation. So in San Diego, they rolled out a bike program. They rolled out a electric scooter program where, yeah, you have to pay for it, right? Because it was provided by these private companies. And they, man, I cannot tell you how many times, one, these ended up on the the other side of the border, or two, I would see them all around, either piled up, thrown on people's yards, and completely dismantled. Like, and by the way, this was, a lot of it was done not by by teenagers just trying to cause problems. No. A lot of these were essentially taken over by homeless people. Right? They would somehow, if it had on the bikes, for instance, if they had a way for a locking mechanism to engage after someone paid for it and the time expired, those locking mechanisms were rigged, taken off, destroyed, so that the wheels could keep turning. And again, same thing happened with the scooters. Clearly they have tracking, and clearly they're electrical. And somehow people, specifically the homeless community, found a way to rig them, for their convenience, so that, so that they never have to either pay again for it, or they never have to give it up. And I feel that would be another big thing that might happen with these pods, is people taking somehow ownership of it, right? And of course, anyone can sit here and say, well, JT, the cop can be called, and, social services, but you have to think that that's actually adding more work, right, to police officers or to social workers even, in having to remove these individuals because they take ownership. I mean, at least, again, from where I'm from in San Diego, they'll take ownerships of blocks, entire blocks. In LA, I've never been to, but in LA, there is a road. I'm not sure if I'm confusing it with Skid Road, or that's what it's called, or Tent City, or I don't know the name exactly, but in LA, there is a massive area of LA of like these makeshift tents where homeless have just completely occupied, like, freeway crossings, or not freeway crossings, but the overhead crossing, like these bridges. It's completely overtaken. Where cars once drew by, you can't anymore. And what happens? You have police officers having to go out there, being called out regularly to break up fights between them, to make sure that, hey, you guys can't be just defecating on the street and using it as your public restroom. There's a countless amount of problems, right? Now you can imagine what would happen if they roll out these pods. Well, again, why would a homeless man or a woman, or group, like you just said earlier, right, say, hey, whatever, we don't want to go to the shelter, let's take over this thing? Because remember, people don't sleep once in their lifetime, or twice. It's a regular thing. It's a daily thing. So it's like, hey, I just found a pod competing, because of supply and demand, competing with other, right, people for that same pod. Yeah, I'm going to leave, but I'm really just going to sit outside, right? Even if there's a locking mechanism or people that go and take them out, they're just going to sit down there, maybe a feet away, saying, oh, it's nighttime, right? Let's go right back into the pods, essentially making it their own property almost. So I see the will intention behind this. I think it's an idea, definitely, that can work. I just don't know how to get past all the number of problems I just mentioned. You know what I mean?
It's really interesting. It's funny that you should say that, because now you're saying, actually, it got my mind working when you said it's a lot of companies, which are private companies in the US, which are providing those kind of services. I feel like this that they're implying or that they're applying in Germany is actually something that has come from the taxpayer. So I guess maybe that's the difference in culture, you know what I mean? A lot of stuff in the States the States is run by private companies, you know what I mean?
That
And
is.
I feel maybe a lot more in Europe, there is maybe more stuff which is run by taxpayers, by the government, by the people, to put it one way.
So your thinking is that if it's provided by, the people, taxpayers, of course, you feel that maybe has a better shot at succeeding than if it's provided by a private company?
I think so, and that's because people like, oh shit, those are my taxes which are paying for that. I better be a bit more respectful. I don't know. That's just a theory. Just a theory.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are paying taxes sure would be more respectful of these pods. I don't know that a homeless that probably doesn't. I don't know if they do. Maybe they do. Pay into taxes would be, right? But yeah, I mean, I can see the thought process in saying, if I buy something, I usually take care of it. Or if I provide for something, right, I usually take care of it more than when it's just like almost handed to me by a private corporation. And so I'm at least I'm trying to get the thought process behind what you're saying. Again, I think that unfortunately, the homeless population has a major problem when it comes to dealing with mental health, which then sometimes is literally attached to substance abuse, right? And I think anybody can agree that it's a dangerous combination, right? And if you give individuals like that a private space, such as a pod, I don't know that it won't make things worse. But I definitely see your point on hopefully it working. Again, part of my brain says, hopefully this works, man. If it's for the betterment of people and the community, and crossing my fingers, wishful thinking, call it. But again, the more analytical side of my brain says, are you forgetting pretty much everything I just mentioned? All right. Well, with that, let's move on to the last story of today. And that is coming out of the consequence of sound.net. It's really, you can find it on TMZ and you can find it on a whole bunch of other websites. But here the article reads, Dave Chappelle tests positive for coronavirus amid stand-up residency in Austin. So 2 days ago, Chappelle was photographed backstage with Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, and Grims, who is Elon Musk's partner. Why is it a headline? Why does it matter at all? Well, it for some it won't. For some it doesn't. Because many people will see it as, who are these people? I don't really know them, which is, maybe not a large part of the population. But others will see it as, oh, whatever, man. Other celebrities getting COVID. And then some, might have an opinion like we do, of course, over it. And that is because we're talking about people that are pretty big in their social circles, right? They're pretty big in circles of, an example for David Chappelle in the black community, right? He has been very prominent for decades, right? It's not like David Chappelle just came up. No, I mean, David Chappelle has been on the scene, I think, since like the late 80s, maybe. I know for sure, like in the 90s, because he was, big in that one movie, Nutty Professor, excuse me. And you've seen him in countless other movies, and recently he even did that I think it was like a monologue or something / stand up where he talked about George Floyd. He named it literally after the number of minutes and seconds that a knee was placed by that POS officer on George Floyd's neck.
This man kneeled on a man's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Can you imagine that?
So, again, and then of course we're going to go to someone like Elon Musk. I mean, do I need to say more? Right? I think he recently became the most richest man in the world. And then even Joe Rogan, right? Who has that massive, massive deal with Spotify, who has been all over the news over the last probably 6 months to a year since he went over to Spotify because of different issues, right? Not related to this. But again, people that are, again, really, really big in their social circles. And here you have one of them that gets COVID, which in and of itself is not really a big deal. People have gotten COVID, and I think people will continue to get COVID until somehow we're completely done with it. The problem is, an example, the picture, which is what I think a lot of these media sources or news sources are passing around. And they're saying you have big names all together without a mask in a comedy club, where they're all working, I guess, right? I mean, not Elon Musk and his partner, but certainly, you have Chappelle and Joe Rogan, right? Chappelle is there as a main act, and Rogan is there actually as an opening act or supporting act. And, there's this whole thing planned out where they were going to do, I don't know how many days, how many shows. And the article mentioned, right, that people were doing or people managing the club were doing to make sure that the club was safe was upon entry into the event, attendees received a rapid COVID-19 antigen test and were asked to wear a face mask at all times. The one thing that I hear, it just, personally speaking, I don't know, I feel like a facepalm moment was that instead of, the usual little tables with, 2 people, 1 person, and then there's a whole bunch of them spread out. The idea here was that they were going to only have people purchase entire tables, okay, of 4, 6, or 8 seats, which in my opinion, it's still a lot of people. I mean, unless you're talking about only maybe 2 to 3 tables, I don't think it was 2 to 3 tables. I mean, these are massive people, in terms of their popularity, right? Many people want to go see them. And I don't think they're doing shows anymore for a couple $100s, right? It's not like this is the beginning of their career, right? Again, all these people here are worth millions. So even if it's for the love of the craft of doing comedy shows, I want to say that there was probably a dozen or so tables with, again, some of them seating 4, 6, or 8 individuals. I still think that's a lot of people, even with that instant test, which, by the way, side note, Joe Rogan has said multiple times that he does to all of his guests, when they're going to attend kind of like a live thing he does, right? With interviews, I don't know what they call them anymore. And listen, in one side, you can say, well, hey, man, they're doing everything they could. It was just an unfortunate thing. Or, hey, like some people are saying, by the way, maybe it was Elon Musk's, partner who, by the way, was tested positive for COVID not too long ago, and admitted it openly on a Instagram post, which Joe Rogan has come out and kind of defended her, right? So Joe Rogan has this Instagram post where he posts the David Chappelle, right, from TMZ. Dave Chappelle tests positive for COVID-19, cancels TX, as in Texas, shows. Joe Rogan commented on his own post, saying, edited, because people are asking, I was not exposed to the person who had COVID and have tested negative every day this week. Also, the person that gave COVID to Dave was not Elon's partner at, and then Grimes is her at on Instagram. So, he's definitely trying to say, hey, I don't have it. I haven't tested, positive. It wasn't me who gave it to Dave. And he is saying he doesn't believe it was, at Grimes, Elon's partner, because, even though she tested positive, I think a month or 2 weeks ago or something like that. Listen, my final thoughts on this is this. It sucks because Joe Rogan is one of those people that is loved by many. I'm going to admit that I'm one of them. Maybe not a crazy fan. I'm not the biggest fan, but I definitely admire the work Joe Rogan has done over the last, 5-6 years, which is when I started seeing him. I don't know, he's been around much longer. It sucks because he's spoken about massive parties on his own show, about other influencers and being irresponsible, and then just random celebrities that have contracted COVID. And usually he hasn't put those people in the best light. Even people that he has interviewed prior, right? He said, well, it sucks, but you got to be more careful. You got to do this. Always given his his Joe Rogan advice that usually comes from like this higher, thinking, place in his mind, which is why, a lot of people like him, because he has a lot of common sense. But I feel like it failed him here. I don't mean to be too overly aggressive, but man, how many people depend on all of you guys, right? In terms of jobs. I don't think that his employees depend on him doing stand-up. I think his employees, both for Elon and Joe Rogan at least, depend on actually their, call it their daytime jobs, right? Joe Rogan with his podcast, and Elon, well, all his companies. And for them to put themselves out there in situations where you can, you increase the potential of you getting COVID, I feel like it's irresponsible, right? And again, there is a bias because I like the guy, and to be honest with you, I like Elon too, but I kind of feel personally let down here. I just,
Yeah, it's a tough one. When you look at the photo, it was a pretty irresponsible thing to do. Yeah, take your photo. How many times have you done that as well during the pandemic where I seem to have this chip in my brain now wherever there's like a group photo or something like that, or whenever I say hello to anybody or anything like that, I'm just like, is this a good idea?
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously it's not. It's not a good idea. Like you say, it's like a lot of people do rely on these people to make a living, and it does suck. I don't wish any bad on any of those people, but it was kind of irresponsible of them. These people are making 6, 7 figures, maybe even 8 figures in some people's cases.
Exactly. I don't think that they were gonna go broke because they couldn't do this, the comedy thing or whatever. David Chappelle, I don't know his financials. I know he's been around for a long time, but I don't know that he is as rich as obviously Elon Musk, or for that matter, even Joe Rogan. Maybe he's doing it because he needs the gig money. But again, you have people like Elon Musk and Joe Rogan who I definitely don't think they do. And again, it's all about what they have said before. Now, Elon, by the way, in part, I know I've heard him either on interviews or maybe even on Twitter posts downplay the virus a little bit, downplay like the facts or the numbers, which is okay, fine. He's not a naysayer. I shouldn't, I don't want to give that impression. He hasn't said, "Oh, it's not real." No, I don't think he's ever said that. But it feels like some of his arguments have been like, well, numbers are inflated and there are certain people benefiting, which very well may be true. Again, Joe Rogan, on the other hand, has on his show, kind of clown a little bit on people that have contracted it, specifically those that are celebrities, right? And saying, "Oh, you should know better," which is where I would say, Joe, you should have known better. Like, there's only so many things you can prevent, right? If you know that you're hanging out with someone that you kind of know their schedule, they're not really going out anywhere. They're being super careful and whatnot. Great. They are safe. Here's the problem. It's everyone else that's coming into the club. It's the fact that there is no actual science that can prove without an ounce of a doubt that this virus, doesn't travel further than the 8 feet or 6 feet or whatever they're mandating nowadays, right? And when you have a room, people, by the way, are what? Laughing. What do you potentially think is coming out? Even if you tell me, JT, they say that they're supposed to be wearing masks at all times. Yeah, I know. That's what they say in a lot of places. What did I say a couple of videos ago? Where someone's like holding their shirt like this. Or even, they want to like lift it up just a little bit above their nose to breathe a little bit more, or breathe something that's not their breath. So all that are possibilities, right? And again, those clubs usually are not, the clubs that are maybe open air in a concert or something. They're usually in pretty close quarters. You know what I mean? And so anyways, that's just, it's a little bit of a letdown, that's all. Do I think any less of these individuals? Not necessarily. I feel bad for them. I wish all of them, hopefully, a speedy recovery if they all end up contracting COVID. Certainly David Chappelle, who's been confirmed. That's what I'll leave it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the other thing to bear in mind as well is, like, I would probably imagine that this being a club is probably going to be selling booze as well. So people's face masks. What? Drink.
Really good point. Yeah, really damn good point. Shit.
So
Didn't even consider
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think it is for the benefit of someone else, I guess. I'm not necessarily saying it's for the. I'm not necessarily saying it's for the benefit of the figurehead, shall we say? Like whether you're Elon Musk's or Dave Chappelle's. There's other people like that. Venue is probably having serious financial problems right now, so they're probably thinking that, this event will help, and they need it. They need the money. Small businesses need the money.
I agree, and I get what you're saying, by the way. And other than Elon Musk, I mean, the other two are helping by, maybe you're right, by an appearance or something, right? And giving business to the club. I say other than Elon Musk, because Elon Musk can solve most people's problems by signing a check and not feeling it moments after signing it. He's like, oh, that's okay. Here you go. The interest I just made on everything else has paid for that, whatever, right? But anyways, that's besides the point. Yeah, I mean, again, it's one of those mixed emotions, at least personally, right? By the way, someone that has unfortunately lost someone to COVID would disagree with me, right? And say, are you effing kidding me, JT? Screw these rich people, blah, 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 and we'll bash them and say, they're the worst human beings. So that's what I'm saying. It's a mixed bag, right? Because I too have critiqued the rich and powerful time and time and again. And of course, I already owned up to my bias here. I have this bias where I like these guys, and it's like, fuck, you let me down, man. You let me down.
Yeah, it really does suck, but there you go.
Yeah, it is what it is. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you for watching the show. As always, you can catch any of these shows on any of our platforms. If you don't know where to find all these platforms, you can go to the YouTube section down below and click on the link tree. It'll be there. Everywhere that you can find the show is located there. I appreciate it if you follow everything in there. You have no idea how much it helps the show. In addition, if you can also hit that like button if we've earned it, the subscribe, the bell notification, and if you want to join the channel on YouTube to help sponsor us, it really helps. I know I just asked you guys to do a whole bunch of things. Again, only if we've earned it. Only if you feel that you want to partake in everything we're trying to do here for you guys. But yeah, with that, thank you for watching, and until next time, see ya. Hey, thanks for watching the JTH Show. Remember, you can catch all the full episodes, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Radio Public. You can also visit www.thejthshow.com to catch episodes there, and to catch anything that we had to blur out because of YouTube or any other platform. We usually put all of our raw information in there that is uncensored. You can also become a member at www.thejthshow.com to catch all the special perks. Thanks for watching.